No astronaut ever went to the moon. No astronaut ever went more than 500 miles, 400 miles into space. And the reason is because there's a Van Allen belt, which is highly radioactive, that extends from 500 miles to 25,000 miles out in space. The reason ET put that Van Allen belt is there so we couldn't visit any place because they don't want us contaminating the solar system or the moon or anything else until we complete our essential job here on Earth, which is to live with integrity, without envy, hate, or greed, and to express.
Craziness is going on over here. Okay. Okay. We gonna find out. The second impediment: inappropriate behavior pattern. Inappropriate behavior patterns. The conditions of Black Americans cannot be totally blamed on white society's structural monopolies. The second impediment to empowering Black America is inappropriate behavior among the members of its groups of its group. Their inappropriate behavior patterns stem from distorted vision. They are conditioned to be colorblind. They neither see nor want to be black. Blackness is not just skin color, it is more so an appropriate behavior pattern based upon a rational perspective, a perspective born out of a group's experiences and continuing dilemma. An erroneous perspective causes inappropriate behavior patterns. These behavior patterns de empower, rather empower, black people. In a society based on white superiority, it is inappropriate behavior when black people participate in their own subordination and exploitation. It is inappropriate behavior when their actions support the established racial hierarchy and encourage dependency upon white society. The more the more a minority group, especially a planned black minority, becomes dependent on the majority white society, the harder it is for the group members to differentiate who they are and behave in their own best interest. Their dependency distorts racial reality and causes many of them to live in a state of denial, tolerating and justifying why they are in an oppressed state. They are generally willing to accept their poor quality of life and avoid any form of competitiveness unless it is against members of their own group. Categories of inappropriate behavior. There are many types of inappropriate behavior ranging from the classic Sambo. A Sambo is a black person who betrays his own race and gains personal profit. To a militant with an attitude of blacker than thou arrogance. Inappropriate behavior is the manifestation of the intentional softening of the competitive impulse in an individual or group, to the point that everything is turned upside down and backwards. The individual or group is inclined to compete among themselves and ally with outsiders rather than allying with members of their own group to compete against outsiders. What is even more troublesome is that inappropriate behavior teaches whites and others how to treat black people. If black Americans want to change how they are treated, they must change what they are teaching their competitors. Below, we will briefly discuss a few of the most common and destructive categories of inappropriate behavior. Collusion with the competition. This type of behavior is visible in coalition building. It is without a doubt the most troubling for the race because it is a strategy used by so many members of Black America's leadership class. Although coalition, although coalition building is a popular concept, coalitions almost always operate at the expense of Black Americans. Even though blacks themselves are not organized and do not have stated group goals, coalition building encourages them to coalesce with other groups that do have articulated goals rather than to organize their own group. Black participation gives credibility and strength to ethnic, class, gender, disabled, and Spanish speaking groups, some of whom compete openly with blacks for wealth and power and openly oppose black gains. When blacks participate in coalitions, they allow the unique status, history, and debt owed to blacks to spread to all of the subgroups. Race is made synonymous with minority, and racism synonymous with any form of discrimination. These are gigantic distortions of reality and give fictional common ground for building coalition between blacks and any group that perceives itself as aggrieved. Blacks should not be against any group, but what political or economic benefits do they derive from coalitions with Asians, American Indians, Hispanics, women, or gays that take black problems, convert them into minority problems, then then propose non-specific universal solutions. Political coalitions created under the broad, ambiguous concepts of minorities, cultural diversity, and multiculturalism do not benefit blacks as a group. In collusion with the competition, coalitions give black Americans a trickle down political experience. They get what is left after gender, ethnic, religious, disabled, and Spanish language groups in the coalition. Okay. They get what is left after gender, ethnic, religious, disabled, and Spanish language groups in the coalition receive what they want and need. Black Americans lose by default due to the inappropriate behavior of black leaders who choose cross group alliances, white approval, and corporate dollars at the expense of their own people. Social etiquette. Behavior patterns in this category appear to stem directly from the old social or Southern racial etiquette. Though one of the major accomplishments of the Black Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s was to modify some of the social etiquette existed traditionally existed between blacks and whites. Many blacks across America, especially in the South and Midwest, continue to honor old social customs. They avoid situations that make them appear free, independent, and active in shaping their own lives. They are perfectly happy to go to work or to church, look at television, and then go to bed. They still know their place and know how to play get low. To them, what happens to black people locally or anywhere else is of little concern. To them, what happens to black people locally or anywhere else is of little concern. They want to appear as good Negroes, content, happy, compromising, and non competitive. A good Negro or safe black person seeks approval of whites. These blacks will neither speak up nor speak out on black issues, nor will they defend against black injustice. Let's see. Uh, Avoiding blackness. Blacks who exhibit this behavior avoid association with any form of blackness. They want to be the first or only black person in an integrated company, school, neighborhood, organization, or political party. Like whites, many blacks gauge the amount of black presence, and anything that is not integrated or is all black is too black and, politically incorrect. This phenomenon is peculiar to blacks. There is no similar expression that someone or something is too Jewish, too Indian, too white, or too Asian. Avoiding blackness allows many to live in a state of denial until the reality roosters come home. A true story illustrates how blacks try to avoid blackness. A woman who had grown up in a conservative Midwestern town was proud of the respect and status whites accorded her family. She was proud that she and her children were economically better off than most blacks in town, and her husband was well known in white political circles. However, her world came tumbling down one day when she was in the grocery store with her young daughter. When leaving the store, they came face to face with a white mother and daughter. A young white child pulled a young white child pulled on her mother's dress and said, "Look, mommy, there are some niggers." The white mother pulled the little girl close, pulled the little girl, pulled the white mother pulled the little girl close and whispered, "Hush, honey, those are Wilson niggers." The friend who related the story was the young black daughter. She said that for the first time in her life, she knew that regardless of her family's economic status or prominence, she was not allowed to escape her skin color. While blacks do not mind being identified with a particular sports team or political party, many reject being identified with the skin color team that God has assigned them. Avoiding blackness is counter to the way out. Is counter to the uh, Avoiding blackness is counter to the way out groups respond. They exhibit an increased sense of group consciousness and and close their ranks. They exhibit an increased sense of group consciousness and close their ranks. They create associations, organizations, and businesses dedicated to whatever characteristics others dislike. For instance, if Jews are persecuted because of their religion, they protect and strengthen themselves by building Jewish businesses, organizations, and tight knit communities. They build Jewish synagogues that teach Jewish culture, history, and religion. They help build and support the Jewish state of Israel. Women who feel marginalized by the system because of their gender respond by building women's organizations and businesses to promote women's issues. The gay community builds gay organizations, businesses, and tight-knit communities. Asians respond Asians respond to this type of adversity by building businesses, organizations, and tight-knit communities around their Asian culture. When whites say they despise black people, blacks adopt that same attitude. They imitate whites and run from blackness, which should serve as a rallying point around which to build defenses. When blacks run away from themselves and avoid their own skin color, heritage, history, and other members of their race, they become vulnerable and defenseless. They cannot protect themselves. White ice is colder. Another category of inappropriate behavior is the persistent belief that white ice is colder. Black America is conditioned by family, school, and all the social institutions to believe that whites are inherently superior. Although there have always been blacks who try to disabuse other blacks of this belief, their efforts have had limited effect. The superior quality of the white man's ice remains a commonly accepted belief and expression in black America. I'm a witness. In the mid 1970s, I actually saw a real life display of this inappropriate mindset and behavior. Standing with a friend in front of his office building in Tallahassee, Florida, I saw a black man drive up to a black-owned grocery store. He got out of his car and walked over to the ice machine. He picked up several bags of ice, examined them, put them back into the ice machine, then walked across the street to a white-owned liquor store. There, he went to the ice machine and took out two bags of ice. He examined them, then went to the drive-through window to pay for them. My friend and I were so struck by the behavior that we asked him why he rejected the ice at the black store. But he purchased the identical brand from the white-owned store. He said, "I don't like Mr. Brown's ice. It's too lumpy." Jack's Liquor's ice is better. Jack's Liquor's ice is better. That day I learned that not only was white ice colder, but apparently smoother to at least one black man. Inappropriate behavior has become deeply rooted in the psyche of black America's dialectic type of reasoning. If whites touch it, make it, sell it, repair it, or talk about it, only then is it acceptable to blacks. But on an even deeper level, Black inappropriate behavior seems to suggest that a significant number of blacks place more value on being alive than the conditions under which they live. Eradicating these self deprecating habits and learned inappropriate behavior patterns begins with offering black people new information, new political and social, new political and economic goals, new social, psychological models, and new hope. Inappropriate behavior. Collusion with the competition. Categories of inappropriate behavior. Collusion with the competition. Collusion with the competition. Social etiquette. Avoiding blackness. And white ice is cold. All right. The third impediment, no plan for empowerment. Through the years, blacks and white alike have called for blacks to organize and help themselves rather than depending on whites. As early as the 1860s, Albion W. Turgey, a visionary abolitionist, prophesied that neither the enactment of laws nor appeals to the majority society's conscience would reverse the tide of white racism or lift black people. Torgey believed that the solution to the nation's race problem rested in blacks becoming more independent, exhibiting greater militancy and self assertion. Torgey was so committed to those beliefs that even as a white man, he fought the conservative philosophies of Booker T. Washington, a black man. Torgey tried to convince Washington that black Americans would never gain political and economic parity in America until they organized themselves and pursued a course toward economic justice. A century later, a national commitment to economic justice for blacks still has not been made. Social integration and civil rights remain the foremost issues. Black America needs a national plan and knowledgeable, committed leadership to guide it toward group empowerment and economic justice. Powernomics is a national plan and requires institutional leadership to implement it. It is reverse social engineering. The sole purpose of Powernomics is to unleash the economic and political potential of Black America by addressing the historical, structural, economic inequalities between the races and the self-defeating inappropriate behavior patterns of Black Americans by the year of 2005. Now that the need for empowerment has been established, the remaining chapters and the appendices of this book explain the Powernomics plan and how to achieve Black empowerment. Okay.